Hi, everybody. Thank you to Craft Brewers Professionals. I'm really excited, or Craft Beer Professionals, sorry. I'm really excited to talk to everybody today. We're going to talk about boosting productivity through trust and delegation. And I'm Suzanne Olson, and I'm the owner and chief experience architect of Brilliant Workplaces. So let's get started. Oh, let's move forward with my slides. Okay, so today what we're going to learn is why trusting others to help us is so hard, and what trust and delegation can do for your business, and then some steps for building trust, and then how to start delegating effectively. So some things about me. So I am, like I said, I have a company called Brilliant Workplaces. I'm a consulting firm. I specialize in customer experience, customer service, culture design, and people development. The other thing is that I am a former brewery owner. So I ran Red Shed Brewery with my dad and my husband for several years. We're located in Cooperstown, New York. We have 2 retail tap rooms and a distribution network. I've spoken at the New York Craft Brewers Conference on workforce culture before, and I really understand the challenges of being a craft beverage producer, managing manufacturing, hospitality. But I also discovered as running the brewery that there's really a big difference in terms of reading about leadership and operating as a leader with your own business. It really is different. The other thing is that, speaking to my husband about this presentation, and he said, I had all my qualifications up there, all my corporate jobs. And he said, well, that's really great. But the thing you should really talk about with this group is the fact that you ran a brewery while working corporately and having a family. And the only way you could do that is really through delegation. And I had a couple transitions in my career where I worked full-time at the brewery, then I went to full-time corporately, and then I did part-time for both. But really the magic of what we're going to talk about today is that, you have a lot of things on your plate, and you want to get some of those things, you want to boost your productivity, and you can really do that through delegation. So I do consider myself a work in progress when it comes to delegating. We are all not perfect with it. But by having some strategies in place, we can be able to be more effective with our work. Okay, so what does my company do? So just briefly, some of the things I've been seeing some of the presentations that have been posted, and I saw one on customer experience recently, which was really great. And so that is what I do, is I do experience design. I look at what the customers want from your organization and then design experiences to deliver that. I also work on branding and creating uniqueness for businesses. I also do customer service. So I design customer service standards, service training manuals, policies, processes, and then train others. And then finally, I work on team and leadership development. And the reason is because when you have a great culture and people are engaged, you're able to provide that great customer experience. And that truly comes through great leadership, clear communication. And so by having the people be at the forefront of your business, that's really how you get to great customer service and great customer experience. And so I wanted to give you my email address now, because if you want to email me at the end of this presentation and talk more about anything or work, have any questions about what I talk about, please feel free to email me. I am always here for you. All right, so let's talk about learning to trust and delegate. So we know that we should be trusting our teams and giving up more tasks. But why don't we? What is so hard about giving people things to do. And what's stopping us from doing that? So Brene Brown, I have a nice quote here from Brene Brown, where she talks about trust is not built in big sweeping moments. It's built in tiny moments every day. And that's really what I'm going to talk about, is that all these things that I'm going to share with you today, it's going to be a lot. But the more you start to practice and integrate at least one thing into your daily life, the better you will be at this. Brene Brown is a great resource on leadership and trust. And so she has a book called Dare to Lead, if you haven't heard of it. But if you want to learn more, that's a great book to read. And so today we're going to explore some of the reasons that stand in the way in our delegating our teams and how to overcome them. And then also how to give proper direction when delegating. So does any of this sound familiar to everybody? So when it comes to trusting others, you might not be really mindful of what's holding you back, but do any of these sound familiar to anyone? Well, I know that this is something that I struggle with. So the first thing is that I just don't have time to delegate. And I totally get it. You have to explain everything, all the details of the tasks. You have to tell people where things are. And in the end, it's just faster to do it yourself. And this one I'm really famous for because I know what I'm doing and other people don't. And so it's just easier for me to do it. And subconsciously, I think that I'm really thinking that whomever I'm going to give this to is not going to do as good of a job as I am, and therefore I should just do it myself. And sometimes it doesn't even occur to you that you should be delegating. So sometimes I'll be halfway through doing something, and then I'll think, shoot, why am I doing this? This is not a good use of my time. And then, so sometimes it just doesn't even occur to you. And then finally, if you've given tasks to people before, they've just gotten screwed up. And so like the first one, sometimes it's just easier to do it yourself. But it's frustrating when you give something to someone because then you've lost time in not getting it done in the time frame that you want. And so think about these, and if you do any of these. So one strategy to kind of overcome some of these barriers is to keep a quick log of all the things that you did for the day. And that might sound like a lot, but maybe keep a log for a week, and that will document how you're spending your time. And then you can review that list and see where you truly could have delegated something. And again, it gives more awareness to the things, to the barriers that might happen for you. And so don't wait until you have to delegate something. The thing about if you don't overcome some of those barriers, as a business person, you want a day off, and they really can start to affect your business because then you're taxed, you're busy. Other people might not be so busy. That's frustrating for you. You feel like you can't take a day off where other people can. And then you end up working too much. And so then you end up being forced to delegate things. And then you do so ineffectively, just sort of toss them out there. That's not how we want to start delegating and trusting others. You want to be mindful. And by recognizing some of the barriers and recognizing some of the patterns, they can help you understand why you aren't delegating. And then when you start to delegate more effectively, your teams have more ownership. They are more engaged in the organization and its success, and you can have a day off or be able to focus on the needs of the business that are always getting pushed to the side. So when I ran Red Shed Brewery, it always seemed like we were solving the immediate things. There's a lot of fires when you have your own business. Everything the urgent stuff always rises to the top, and you're not able to strategize. And so, but as we got better with having other people be able to put out the fires for us, my husband and I and my dad were able to think about the future of our business and really start to get more strategic. And so this is what I want for you. This is where I want you to be as you start to delegate more. So how do you get started? Well, the first thing is that I'm assuming everybody would like a day off and would like to be more productive. And so getting started is really about 3 steps. So first, it's really about understanding yourself. So your work style, the barriers that you have to delegating, and which ones you're going to be able to let go and which ones are not going to be appropriate. Next, you have to understand others who are on your team. So how they communicate and what their strengths are so that you can delegate the right things. And finally, you have to know what you're asking for and be clear in your tasks and what tools you might have to effectively delegate. So this might sound like a lot, but I promise you with practice, it will get easier. So let's get started with understanding yourself a bit better. So the first thing is in the barriers is really understanding what's holding you back, but also understanding how you might communicate and relate to others in the workplace. So first, we talked about some of the barriers, some of the mindsets that we have when we're not delegating, but really start to understand why you aren't delegating. So you might feel like when you're a perfectionist, you really want everything to be done a certain way. And you might feel that your work is better. You work harder, you work smarter and faster than others. And whether or not that is something that you actively think or is something in the back, that might be one of the things that's holding you back for delegating. You probably have more experience, and that's okay. So another reason why people don't delegate is really about control. So control, I will say that this is my issue, is that I want things to be the way I want them to be. And so I don't let people help me because of that. And that is something that you have to learn to let go. Because control is, it's hard to let go, and we'll talk about how to do that. The other thing is called self-enhancement bias, and that's when there is a belief that passing on work will detract from your own importance. And so you're the boss, and so you want to be seen as the boss. And so another one is that you don't want to seem like you're being upstaged. So let's say you give somebody something and they knock it out of the park and it's awesome. And you're happy for them, of course, but at the same time, you might have this inherent fear that it might look badly on you. And so this slide is a little uncomfortable, and you might think, oh, well, these are none of my things. But really, I ask you to kind of take a look within yourself and ask yourself if any of these are you. And I think you'll find that some of them might be you. And that's okay. Because giving up control and some of these things really takes confidence in yourself. So another thing in understanding yourself is really about how you like to work. And for understanding how I like to work, I like to use something called the DISC model. So if you've had a corporate job in the past, you might have taken some sort of assessment. A lot of companies do that today. You might have even taken the DISC assessment before, or a personality assessment like Myers-Briggs. But if you have that information available to you, get it out and look at it again. And the reason I like to use DISC is because it's very simple to understand. And I think as I go through, you'll recognize some of the traits within yourself. It can help you understand your work style, and it can also help you understand how you communicate with others to get things done. So whether you realize it or not, everybody has individual preferences and tendencies when it comes to communicating others and tasks that they gravitate towards. So knowing this information improves self-awareness and can inspire appreciation of others. In the DISC model, people fall into different areas. Or 4 different areas, and I'll explain them. I want you to think about where you might be. Okay, so the first area is the D style. So D styles tend to be direct communicators. They want things done now. They're very results oriented, and they have they really have little patience, and they like control. So the I's are more outgoing, they're more enthusiastic, they love to be social, but it can be hard to focus. And the S's are really about steady people. So people who are patient, tactful, accommodating, and avoid conflict. The C styles are really about people who are precise, very detail-oriented, analytical. They love to take their time. And so think about where you might fall on the DISC model. So we're all a combination of these styles. You're not all of them all the time, but you have a tendency to lean towards a certain area. And you might have to stretch a bit further to be like the other styles. So I'll give you an example. So in our brewery, we did assessments, and I am a D style. My husband is also, he is a DI, and my dad is also a D. So that means that we all like control. We all feel our way is the best way. And we also are very direct communicators. And so what happened with this is that it actually created a lot of conflict because we all thought our idea was the best idea and the best way to move forward. But by understanding that this is why we had some of the issues that we did with trusting each other, we were able to overcome some of these things because, we had other strengths. So my husband, like I said, is more of an outgoing person. And he, by being more outgoing, we gave him more of those tasks to do. And he was our operations person. He was the one who was out in front a lot. And so thinking about where you are and your style will really help in how you might communicate and how you might come across when you're giving tasks. So the next step is to know and trust others. And so this is really about understanding other people. So once you understand yourself and kind of where you're coming from and what's holding you back, the next step is really to understand the people that you work with. So in these next couple slides, I want you to think about how someone that you're going to start delegating to more. So does everybody have that person in mind? Okay. So let's talk about how we're going to start delegating to these people. So to be able to delegate or trust someone, so think about that person and what they're already good at. So have the conversation about where you think they might be really strong, and then also where they think they're really strong. Because there's another book called, oh, now I'm totally forgetting it, of course, but there's skills or strength. That's what it is. It's called Strengths Finder. So Strengths Finder talks about how you can maximize some skills people already have. And so understanding people's strengths is a great thing because, we always work on what we think our opportunities are, but sometimes it's better to maximize a strength. So after you have the conversation about strengths and what things they want to do, then you can talk about where they might feel like they have opportunity and get a conversation going about what they want to develop themselves, or something they wanted to try more. What tasks do they want to be doing? Because not the conversation about people's career goals, it not only engages them more, but it can retain them as well, because people know that you're interested in their career. They are working with you as a person, and so they want to work for companies that invest in them. And I don't mean invest in terms of money. I mean invest in terms of time and education. And so knowing this information is a great way to build your bench, in whatever day, in any way that you want. You want to take the day off. And so developing others is a great way to do that. So once you have this information from several people, you can start to develop a skills board so that when you have a task you need to delegate, you can support them and yourself. And so a skills board is really a visual reminder of what people want to work on. And that way, when you have a task, it's you can see that that person wants to work on something and you can work with that person on it. So going back to our DISC model again. So remember, you're thinking about that person. So some tasks might be suited for certain people. And so which ones might be suited for certain people? So for example, we talked about how C styles are very deliberate and detail oriented. So what kinds of things could you give a person who might be seen like they have a C style? Would you give them a task where they need to be out in front, bartending or being very social? Or would they be better to be a very highly detailed task, like taking inventory where they can work alone and methodically checking every detail? So think about the person. I styles love being social and get energized by people. And so those people are the ones that you might want to give things like party planning or team events or more bartending. And so where do you think, your brewers might fall? Brewers are tough. I know where our brewer might be, but what things do the brewers want to be doing more of in the brew house? And what tasks could you give them that might be a little bit outside the brew house if that's what they want to be working on? So think about the right task for the right person based on the way that they work. So another consideration is how you deliver the message. Remember, your style will determine how you communicate. So like me being a D or a dominant style, I'm very direct. I might not give people all the detail. So like if I'm delegating to a C style, C styles really want all the details. Well, that's not my nature. And so, but understanding when I'm communicating to a detail-oriented person, I might provide a little bit more detail. Or similar to someone who's an S who doesn't like conflict, I might seem impatient to that person. So understanding each other when you're delegating is important. All right, so finally, really understanding the task and the outcome. And this is really about understanding what you are going to delegate. And so now that you understand how you like to work or get work done, what tasks might be suited for others, we can think about the actual task at hand, which is just as important. So when you're working with others, a good reminder is that it's not only who you're learning to trust, but also that they need to trust you. So there's nothing worse than being given something that is incomplete or jumbled or doesn't have all the information that the person needs, or you're holding things back. And so when you delegate something or trusting someone to get something done for you, the person receiving the task is really is trusting that you have given them all the information that they will need to be successful. And you're in exchange, you're trusting them to get it done. And so having this relationship of trust is really the foundation, and for being able to give them the right task. So the first thing when you're about to delegate to someone is ask yourself, is this a good use of my time? Or is this the best use of my time? Almost before you start doing it. Like I said, I typically will be halfway into something, and then I'll realize that this is not the best use of my time. And then I'm halfway done and I'm annoyed with myself because I just wasted, an hour or a day or however long when I really should have delegated it. So a good strategy for getting out in front of what to delegate is really to start planning ahead. So have those conversations about the things that need to get done, whatever it is, at staff meetings or planning sessions. And that way you can plan the work and then work that plan. People also have the chance to get more information if needed. So I will tell you that when I ran the brewery, I did not do this. We did not get out in front of delegating. As I said, we fought fires a lot. And I just think, when I was putting this together, I realized how powerful it could have been if, instead of at our staff meetings just sort of talking about how things went, we actually got proactive and started talking about all the things that needed to happen, who we needed to get back to, what needed to be done that week in detail, and then started delegating those tasks. Could have been much more effective. So having that strategic approach will get you in front of delegating. And that way you won't even have to ask yourself if it's the best use of your time, because you will have already given it to someone else. Another great strategy for thinking about whether a task should be delegated is using the 70% rule. So this comes from the CEO project. And it says that if someone can do something at least 70% as well as you can, give it away and delegate it to that person. So by delegating more, you're going to learn a new way of doing something. So it's really not about perfection. It's about completion. And remember, it's about getting it done so that you can have more time to do the things that really demand your attention, not mire you in the details. So again, when I was putting this together, my husband really liked this because he could immediately think, can they do this 70% as well as I can? Probably. And when you start to delegate tasks, it's important to really communicate effectively. So the 3 C's of communication can really come in handy. So the first one is being clear. So being clear in what you're asking somebody to do. So what are the outcomes that you're looking for? And it's important to be as specific as possible. So you don't want to dictate every single detail on how things should be done, but you do want to set expectations for what you're expecting. So for example, if you're giving somebody something and you're expecting it to be a checklist or a worksheet, you want to tell them that because But if you don't care, or it doesn't matter what you're just sort of looking for whatever it is, you can tell them that too. But they should really understand what success might look like for them. And that will help them get it done. And so it's important to let people know if there is any flexibility in the task at hand. And then be concise. So I have seen many, many, many communications, written and in person, that have way too much information. And so think about this is where that balance comes of, giving people all the necessary information, but not too much information that they get stuck. And so in healthcare, we have a technique that I do with physicians called teach back. And teach back is where you ask the person, once you've done explaining something to someone, you ask them what they intend to do. So it's also called clarifying and confirming. And so this way you can understand if what you've communicated to people is have they really understood what you're asking. And so some strategies with teach back is, okay, explain to me what you think we're doing. Or, if Bob walked in here, what would you say that you're working on? It's just any way to get somebody to use their own words to explain what they are. They don't have to have all the details about how they're going to do it, but explain what you're looking for. And that way you can correct or confirm that, yes, that is indeed what you're looking for. The last thing is to be consistent. And so again, clarify and confirm understanding, but also keep people informed if changes have occurred or you have a new set of expectations. So I get that you give somebody something and then the objective changes or the task changes, but keep people informed along the way and be consistent in your messaging. So you don't want to give someone something and say, I'm expecting a spreadsheet of all the inventory to be done by whenever. And then, the next time you see them, ask for it in a checklist or a totally different format. It's important to be consistent in your messaging as well. And this will also help with trust. Again, don't talk about the path, talk about the destination. So the next thing is that when you're delegating, you want to set deadlines. You want to have people understand the expectations of when you would like to have things done. So this, I will admit, again, I'm famous for giving something to someone and not telling them when I want it done, but in my D style, wanting it to be done immediately, and then being annoyed that they haven't done it in the time that I wanted. So setting people up for success by sharing your expectations. So either progress or when you actually want it done. And it's so funny. I actually, when I have business meetings, I will ask people, when would you like to see a first draft, or when would you like this by? And I don't think people do that all the time. And so sometimes they're surprised that I'm asking, and they don't really have an answer. They just want it done. But I think in their minds, they kind of do have an idea of when they want to have something done. So help set people up for success and tell them when you want it. The next thing is to be available. So let people know that you're not just lobbing something to them and it's theirs. Let them know that you are a resource and that there might be other resources available also. let them know that they can come to you when they get stuck. Because sometimes when people get something new and they're working through it, they don't know where to start. And so this is where, again, at the next one, you can really check in and say, how's it going? Now, of course, you don't want to nag people, but you do want to make sure that things are moving forward. And this will avoid, as we talked about, getting burned, because then you can remove those roadblocks in advance. And I also call them swirls. So a swirl is when someone just it doesn't know, is thinking about all these things, and they're really not accomplishing the task. They're just sort of doing a lot of busy work in the hope that they think they're doing the right thing, but they might not. And so you want to check in and say, how's it going? Do you need anything? Is there anything I can do for you? What do you need? And people have a very hard time asking for help, as we all know. And so getting out in front of those roadblocks and removing them will keep things moving. So let's talk. So we've talked about, knowing yourself, knowing the person, and knowing the task. But sometimes there are times when you should not delegate. And it's not even about not trusting someone. It just isn't appropriate. And so the first thing is to think about is not to delegate tasks that are too complicated, technically complicated, where someone clearly doesn't have the skill set. Unless you have the patience for them to learn, some things are truly left better to you. So again, this is where you would use the 70% rule. Or even if it's not even 70%, even if it's close, think about whether or not something is just really out of their league or they're just not good at it. Sometimes people don't have the adequate amount of knowledge to complete something. So this is where you might help. Do they want to learn something new? You might not be the best person to teach them. There's that tribal knowledge, right? When we do this with training, or especially service training or technical training in the tap room, it's knowledge that's passed down, right? And so is it the right knowledge that you're giving somebody? Are you training them the right way? So think outside the box and look for other sources of expertise. And think about whether or not, maybe they need to learn something first, and then you can delegate that task. And finally, sometimes there's just too much at stake. So there's tasks that we work on that are just, the consequences are way too great. So as an example, one of my rules at the brewery was that I was the only person who was allowed to speak to the media. I think this is from my marketing background in corporate, is that, only certain people are allowed to talk to the media. And the reason is because, the media would come into the tap room and want a story about beer travel or beer or customers. And, you never know what people are going to say. So the staff was instructed to get me or call me immediately. Because, it's my brand, it's my business, and I have experience with media relations. And I was the one who wanted to talk to the media about to manage the message. So, looking back to those biases of control and perfectionism, I probably could have started grooming somebody to do it. And so that's something that definitely I could have considered. But, my brand, I felt was too much at stake by delegating that information. And so it is okay if you don't want to delegate something. The goal here is to make you more efficient and build trust with your teams. But as Brene Brown said in the beginning, it's really about small steps over time. So don't feel bad about not giving someone a task that you don't want to. But do recognize that when you are holding on for control or another one of those barriers, you might not be as productive as you could be. And that's really what this is about. It's about small things that you can do to make yourself more productive. And so some final thoughts. So we went over a lot of strategies to think about when we're starting to trust and delegate. So if you don't know where to start with first that just reminder of whether or not something is a good use of your time. So maybe write a sticky note or something that's visual for you, that when you're working, however you work, this is a little harder if in the brew house, but think about, is this a good use of my time? Kind of take that personal inventory. So that's kind of number one. That's where I would start. And then next, I would start with making a list of those tasks that you're doing and seeing what can be given out. And remember, this gets easier over time. So it's really about practicing. So it's a work in progress. We all are. It's not a perfect science. As you start delegating more and seeing how much more you're getting done and seeing how happy people actually are to help, you will start seeing from those benefits. And learn from your mistakes. So, you might have given a task to the wrong person, or you might have given something out without all the complete information. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Be patient with yourself and give people the time and the latitude to show you that they can do it. You can also have people help you. So tell your team that you're trying to delegate more and that you want them to speak up when they think they can do something for you. So, in a staff meeting, you can tell people, I'm trying to let go of some things. I need your help. So if you feel like you can take one of these things, I want you to speak up. Now, again, someone might say, oh, I want to do that. And you're thinking, oh gosh, that's really not for you. That's okay. Have the conversation about that. And, be open to feedback and learning new ways of trying something. So you can ask people, if you gave someone something and they did it, you can say, is there anything I could have done better? Is there more information I could have provided? Hopefully you have it, having those honest conversations can be very tough. But as you start to have those conversations with people and everyone's trusting each other, then you can really start to have more openness about delegation. All right. So in summary, these are the final thoughts, right? So understand your work style and barriers that help you delegate. Understand what people need to be successful and provide that guidance for them. Effective communication and understanding is the key. Being proactive rather than reactive. And finally, be patient, practice, and learn to let go. And take that day off because you deserve it. All right. So thank you very much for your time. Again, you can email me at Suzanne@Brilliant Workplaces if you have any questions or want to learn more. What questions do you have for me right now? I'm happy to answer anything about this topic or anything, leadership related, customer service related, regale you with brewery stories, whatever you like. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.